In today's fast-paced workplace, a leader's ultimate legacy isn't just about the results you drive, it's the people you develop along the way. Think about the leaders you've admired in your career. They weren't just the ones who hit every target or closed every deal, but the ones who invested in developing their team. The truth is, the real measure of leadership isn't what you achieve, it's who you elevate. Leadership isn't about always having the answers or fixing every problem. It's about fostering an environment where your team thrives, where they can take risks, where they learn, where they innovate. That's the kind of leadership that scales. It's the kind of leadership that leaves a lasting imprint. In this video, we're going to dive into the number one role of a leader, developing your people. Together, we'll explore how much time you should spend doing this, key activities that drive results, and how to shift your focus from doing to leading. Let's just talk for a minute about the impact of leaders and the value proposition of leaders. There's a lot written on this, obviously, but I think to simplify it, at a macro level, there are essentially two things that leaders do in organizations. Number one is they get results. They drive the business, they build a culture of accountability, and they drive results in the business. The other one, though, is that they build capacity in the business. And the way they build capacity is by building relationship and trust and developing their people and developing their teams. And by developing people, they're building capacity to get future results. So obviously there's a relationship between these two. What I see in many organizations is that they're focused on the results piece and less on the relationship capacity building piece. And obviously over time, that can come back and bite them. So we want to develop leaders who can do both of these things simultaneously. Drive results, build great teams, build high-performing teams, develop people. How do we measure this? How do we know if we're actually successful at this? I would suggest that a very simple metric is, are your people better off when they leave your team than when they came? So whether you spend 1, 2, 3 years with people, they move on to other roles, or perhaps at some point you move on, at the end of that tenure, can they say that they're better equipped, smarter, more effective than when they started? And if they can, I would say that is at least partially on you as a leader. Think about the direct reports on your team right now, however long you've worked with them. If I was to ask them, are they better off than when they started working with you? Would they be able to say yes? And would they be able to tell me specific areas that they've developed and grown in? Essence of developing people is really about coaching people. And so coaching is a topic that leaders should be curious about. They should be reading, studying about this. We'll actually be doing a video on this in the near future. Coaching is really the primary tool we use for having developmental conversations. And coaching, just at the very top line, is about being curious, delving in and having really kind of deep conversations about how people are functioning, how they're thinking about their role, and where they have opportunities to grow. And it's about driving action. At the end of the day, all learning is experiential. Until someone actually goes out and tries at something new that they've come up with, or you've come up with in a one-on-one or a coaching session, there's no learning. So we want to actually drive action. So coaching is about driving new insights through curiosity and through honest conversations, and then driving action where people actually try new things. And that's where they up-level and learn, and there's a whole accountability loop that goes in there. So if coaching is the skill or the behavior that leaders need to bring, how do they actually do this on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? And I think about this as kind of the manager's operating system. And I think many of these components you'll be familiar with. So the operating system for me on a sales team would be one-on-ones. It would be observational coaching, where you go out in the field and actually spend time with your people and see them in action and give them feedback. It would be about pipeline reviews, team meetings, and then of course we have ad hoc conversations that happen day to day. But here's the thing that's most important, and why I think of it as an operating system. I see a lot of leaders who see these as isolated activities on their calendar, and they kind of treat them separately. I want you to think of them as one conversation. Think about someone on your team. Your job is to develop them and grow them. And you have one conversation that is lasting a year, and that conversation is all about their development. And that conversation is punctuated by a one-on-one, by going out in the field with them and doing some observational coaching. Maybe in your team meeting, a pipeline review, a conversation you have with them on the fly. But it should all hang together and the things that we're talking about in those conversations should all connect to each other. That comes to the next point, which is about prioritization. You may have people on your team where there are multiple things that you think they can do to improve or grow or up level. But if you unload all of them at once, you're not going to make progress. They're not going to make progress. As the leader, you need to prioritize one thing at a time where you focus on helping this person develop that. So perhaps you've got someone on your sales team and you're focusing on them having better initial sales calls where they're digging in and uncovering business issues, asking great questions. So in your one-on-one and in your coaching session with them, you're going to talk about that. You're going to delve into that. You're going to understand how they think about it. And in that, you may come up with some ideas and tools that they can implement when they go out. When you go out in the field with them next month or next week, whatever the case is, and you're doing some observational coaching, that's what you're going to be looking for. You're going to be looking for how they're running that initial meeting, how they're asking questions, how they're delving into it. And that's what you're going to be giving them feedback on. When you're having your pipeline review, it might come up there. There might be things that are stuck in the pipeline because they didn't do a good enough discovery early on. You're going to connect the dots there. Maybe you have multiple people on your team working on a similar skill or similar behavior. So in your team meeting, you're going to do a skill building activity on that. And so that's where all of these activities connect together and they help the person move forward. Once you've made progress on that one piece, now we can move to what is next on the list of things that you think are the most important for them to develop. The last piece here that I want to talk about is how much time should you be spending? We would say at a minimum, a third of your time is spent developing your people in one-on-ones, observational coaching, team meetings, pipeline reviews, and ideally even more than that. I would say even as much as 40 and at times, depending on the maturity of your team, even up to 50%. Now, even when I say a third of your time, a lot of leaders push back and say they don't have time for that and that there's no way they could spend that much time. And for me, this is often a symptom that those leaders are over-functioning and they're in the weeds. And the first thing they need to do is get themselves out of the weeds, out of the doing all the time and solving every problem themselves and focusing on developing their people, because that's what's going to scale the business. We actually did a video a couple months back on overfunctioning. We'll link to that below. If you feel that might be something for you, you can have a look at that there. But once you've got yourself out of the weeds, spending a third of your time developing your people shouldn't be onerous, and it absolutely should be scheduled and in your calendar. And only under exceptional circumstances should you be canceling any of these activities. Canceling a one-on-one or canceling a day out in the field with your people sends a really negative message that they are not your priority. So let's wrap this up. There's I think 4 main points here that I want you to take away from this. Number 1, as a leader, absolutely you're accountable for getting results in the business. However, over the long term, the way you do that is by developing people, by developing teams and building capacity in the organization. You do that through coaching, through relationship, through trust. Number 2, coaching is the core skill as a leader that you want to continue to work on and develop in yourself so that you can use that skill to develop your people and your teams. And along with those coaching skills, you need an operating system of how you're implementing those coaching skills and working with people over time. And so that operating system is about having a cadence of one-on-ones, observational coaching, etc. And then lastly, you want to think about time, how much time you spend. And again, we're recommending about a third of your time. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this. How much time are you spending with your people? What goes into your operating system? And also, as we start to talk more about the elements of the operating system and coaching, what are the topics that you'd like to see more videos on? Thank you.